Something big is brewing in Pittsburgh, and it all revolves around Aaron. While fans are waiting for clarity, behind the scenes there's a growing sense of urgency that could shape the entire season. Is this the move that pushes the Steelers back into true contention, or is there more going on than we're being told? Stay with me, because what's unfolding right now might be more decisive than anyone expected. If you're excited about this situation, drop a like and let me know in the comments. Do you want Aaron in Pittsburgh or not? The Pittsburgh Steelers are quietly approaching one of the most defining decisions of their upcoming season, and everything right now seems to orbit around one name: Aaron Rodgers. The expectation inside the organization is becoming clearer by the day, and while there has been outside noise suggesting alternative destinations, the internal pressure is building for Rodgers to make a decision before OTAs begin on May 18th. What's happening behind the scenes is less about panic and more about timing. The Steelers are essentially sending a message without saying it outright. They want clarity, and they want it soon. There's a growing belief that Rodgers will ultimately land in Pittsburgh, and more importantly, that he understands the urgency of the situation. This isn't just about adding a veteran quarterback. It's about setting the tone for a team that believes it can compete right now. At the same time, speculation has started to swirl around a completely different scenario involving the Arizona Cardinals. Now, let's be clear. There's no concrete reporting linking Rodgers to Arizona. None. What we're seeing is pure speculation driven by surface-level connections. People are looking at factors like climate, proximity to his home in California, and familiarity with coaching personnel, and trying to connect dots that, at least for now, don't actually connect. Yes, there are reasons why some might think Arizona could be appealing. A warmer environment late in a career isn't nothing. The Cardinals also have intriguing offensive weapons, young, talented players who could theoretically benefit from a quarterback of Rodgers' caliber. But when you dig deeper, the idea starts to fall apart quickly. First, there's the simple reality of where Arizona stands as a franchise. This is not a team built to win immediately. It's a rebuilding situation, and bringing in a quarterback who is 42 going on 43 years old doesn't align with that timeline. It's a mismatch in philosophy. Then there's the offensive line issue, which might be the most critical factor of all. If you're Rodgers, at this stage of your career, protection is everything. And Arizona simply doesn't offer the level of stability up front that Pittsburgh does. The Steelers, on the other hand, have continuity. They have returning starters, established chemistry, and a system that already proved it can protect the quarterback at a high level. In fact, Rodgers operated behind a unit last season that allowed him to be the least pressured quarterback in football. Walking away from that kind of security wouldn't make much sense. Defensively, the gap becomes even wider. The Steelers bring a proven, high-level defense that can support a veteran quarterback and keep games under control. Arizona is still building in that department. For a player like Rodgers, who is clearly in a win-now mindset, that difference matters more than anything else. And then there's the scheme fit. Rodgers has consistently shown a preference for a more traditional West Coast offense, one that emphasizes rhythm, control at the line of scrimmage, and the quarterback's ability to read and adjust. That's much closer to what Pittsburgh offers than what Arizona is currently building. All signs point to one conclusion. Despite the noise, the Steelers remain the only realistic destination in play. The organization believes it, and based on everything we're seeing, Rodgers likely knows it too. But while that situation continues to develop, there's another storyline unfolding that could have just as much long-term impact on the franchise: the future of Nick Herbig. Over the weekend, comments from his agent made it very clear how highly Herbig is viewed internally and by those close to him. There's a strong belief that if given a full-time starting role, he could develop into one of the top edge rushers in the entire league. That's not just optimism. That's a statement of intent. And here's where things get complicated. Herbig is entering a contract year, and he wants more than just recognition. He wants opportunity and compensation that reflects his potential. He's been learning behind established stars, developing his game, and making the most of his snaps. But now, the conversation is shifting toward what comes next. The Steelers are facing a delicate balancing act. They already have significant financial commitments tied up in their edge rush group. Keeping everyone long-term isn't simple, and decisions will have to be made. There are scenarios where the team could explore trades, restructure deals, or delay decisions, but none of those options come without consequences. What makes this situation even more intriguing is the timing. If Herbig decides to push for a new deal aggressively, it could create tension heading into training camp. Holdouts, limited participation. Those are real possibilities. And historically, the Steelers have been willing to let negotiations stretch deep into the off-season. At the same time, there's a path forward that could benefit everyone. Structuring a deal that rewards Herbig now while managing the cap in the short term could allow Pittsburgh to keep its core intact for another run this season. Then, future decisions, potentially involving other players, can be made with more flexibility. What stands out most is how much the organization values Herbig. He's young, productive, and still ascending. When given extended opportunities, he's delivered, not just as a pass rusher, but as a complete defender. That's not something teams let go of easily. So now, the Steelers find themselves navigating two critical situations at once, waiting on a decision from a future Hall of Fame quarterback, while also trying to secure the future of one of their most promising young defenders. Both storylines are connected by one central theme. This team believes it has a window to win, and every move from here on out has to support that goal. The question now becomes, do you think the Steelers are making the right call by putting their faith in Aaron Rodgers while also trying to manage a complex situation with Nick Herbig? Or is there a better path they should be taking right now? The deeper you go into this situation, the more it becomes clear that the Pittsburgh Steelers are trying to execute something very precise, something that balances immediate contention with long-term stability. And that's where the continuation of both the Aaron Rodgers situation and the Nick Herbig negotiations start to intersect in a very real way. Because if Rodgers does, in fact, make his decision before OTAs and commits to Pittsburgh, it doesn't just solve the quarterback issue for this season. It changes the entire trajectory of the roster. It gives the Steelers legitimacy as a contender right now, and that has a ripple effect across the locker room. Veterans buy in harder. Younger players accelerate their development. And most importantly, it justifies aggressive roster management decisions. And that's where Herbig's situation becomes even more critical. If you're the Steelers and you're going all in on a win-now window, with Rodgers potentially leading the offense, then keeping your defensive identity intact becomes non-negotiable. This team has been built on defense for years, and maintaining that edge, literally and figuratively, is essential. Letting a player like Herbig become a distraction or, worse, losing him altogether, would directly contradict that philosophy. At the same time, you can't ignore the financial reality. The Steelers already have major money tied into their pass rush. That's just the truth of the situation. And while Herbig has earned the right to ask for a bigger role and a bigger paycheck, the organization has to think 2 steps ahead. What makes this even more fascinating is how calculated the potential solution could be. There's a scenario where the Steelers reward Herbig now, give him that financial security, and still maintain flexibility by structuring the deal in a way that delays the heavier cap impact. That would allow them to keep their 3-edge rotation intact for this season, maximizing their chances to compete at the highest level. Then, looking ahead to next off-season, that's where a more difficult decision could come into play. At that point, the team would have more clarity. They'd know what they have in their younger quarterbacks. They'd know whether the Rodgers experiment, if it happens, paid off. And they'd be in a better position to decide which pieces to keep and which direction to go. But make no mistake, there is risk here. If Herbig feels undervalued or boxed into a limited role again, this could escalate. We're talking about a player who, according to those close to him, believes he's ready to be a full-time starter and perform at an elite level. That kind of confidence is great, until it turns into leverage. And in today's NFL, players aren't afraid to use that leverage, whether it's through holdouts, limited participation, or public pressure. The Steelers, historically, have been patient, sometimes to a fault, when it comes to contract negotiations. They don't rush. They don't panic. They stick to their structure. But in a situation like this, where timing could impact both the present and the future, waiting too long could complicate things. Now bring it back to Rodgers for a second, because his presence, or absence, could influence how urgent this becomes. If Rodgers signs, the expectation to win immediately skyrockets. That makes it even more important to avoid distractions and keep your best players locked in and focused. It strengthens the argument for getting a deal done with Herbig sooner rather than later. If Rodgers doesn't sign, then the entire equation shifts. Suddenly, you're looking at a different kind of season, one more focused on development than contention. And in that case, the urgency to commit big money right now might not feel as necessary. That's why these two storylines, while separate on the surface, are actually deeply connected behind the scenes. And there's one more layer to this that can't be ignored: the mentorship factor. If Rodgers does come in, his presence isn't just about what he brings on Sundays, it's about what he can pass down. The Steelers are clearly thinking about the future at quarterback, and having someone with Rodgers' experience guiding younger players in a complex offensive system could accelerate that transition in a way that no coaching alone can replicate. So now you're looking at a team trying to thread the needle. Compete now. Develop for later. Manage the cap. Keep the locker room unified. And do it all while navigating uncertainty at the most important position in sports. This is where organizations either separate themselves or fall into cycles of inconsistency. Right now, the Steelers are walking a very narrow path. One decision from Rodgers could stabilize everything. One misstep with Herbig could create unnecessary tension. And the timing of both situations might end up defining how this entire season unfolds. That's why the next few weeks are so important. OTAs aren't just about practice reps. They're about setting the foundation. Who's there, who's committed, and what direction this team is heading. Because once those questions are answered, everything else starts to fall into place. So keep your eyes on both fronts, because this isn't just off-season noise. This is the shaping of the Pittsburgh Steelers' identity for the upcoming season and beyond. And if you want to stay ahead of every update, every inside detail, and every move as it happens, make sure you're subscribed, drop a like on the video, and click on the one that's on your screen right now, because the latest Steelers news and exclusive breakdowns you'll only find right here. Go Steelers!